Okay.
It's 5:01.
All right, today is Thursday, March 21st, and this is the policy committee meeting. And the meeting is called to order at 5:01. I assume the meeting's been properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, I need minutes approval.
I'll make a
For the
motion to
January-
approve.
January 25th.
And I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. Let's go right into the first policy, class size.
Yeah, the class size policy, there's a draft, this is something that I believe we could possibly get done tonight, but there needs to be some adjustments if everybody agrees with it.
Okay.
And I think it makes sense, just after some input and discussion, that we can obviously have, is differentiating between elementary school and secondary schools in terms of the minimum class sizes. So elementary school, and we can, wordsmith it a little bit, so the class size for secondary, if we do minimum at 20 and then do elementary school minimum at 15, I think that's consistent with there being different set ranges. But there's always criteria, leave the criteria, I think the criteria is good, meaning, leaving the criteria, leaving me the authority to say, okay, there's a lot of at-risk students, there's all these criteria that allows for exceptions.
Okay.
And I would make the board aware of exceptions that would occur. But I think that's reasonable to create, just a companion sentence that differentiates between elementary school and secondary schools.
Yeah, I like that idea because obviously, I think the classroom environment is different when you have, let's say, 27 high schoolers in one room versus 27 first graders. So I think that higher bar in the secondary should make sense to me. Can you say 20?
I think
And then
20 makes
elementary?
sense, but like the exceptions, when we look at the class size, I think these are important, that the exceptions that I would use, A through G, are critical. The degree of dependence or independence of students being assigned, the course, the alternative instructional method. So in other words, is it quest or, facility or equipment limitations? If it's a lab course, I'm glad that that's listed. Because there may be a specific limitation that you don't wanna put in here, but that we're not aware of, like, okay, we can't go to 19 kids based on number of, like, welding units or something, I made that up,
Yeah.
but that's an example. At-risk and special education needs. So I believe the A through G, new courses that have potential to increase enrollment, there's some flexibility here, so setting the 15 and the 20, I don't think people should be overly concerned. It more has to do with opening up a conversation with me and making sure that this is something we're laser focused on. Because right now, like we've discussed before, in this district over the last several years, the empirical evidence is that we have larger class sizes in the elementary school, writ large, 30,000 feet, than we do in the secondary schools. And we wanna right-size that, right? And this is a manner to try to right-size that.
So you said minimum 15 elementary, 20 in secondary.
Right.
Um,
With the understanding that A through
The
G
exceptions, yep.
stay listed there. Those are important to allow that flexibility.
so I see an optimal class range, and how it's written, it makes it so there's some flexibility to go outside of that range. Or is 24K, like 23, let's say, is that the max? Okay.
No, it's an optimal
Just
range.
optimal,
So,
okay.
yeah, so it's not a max,
I mean,
but
You try to stay in it like the policy says.
but it definitely helps us with decision making. Like when I arrived when we made the decision as a board and superintendent to add 3 teachers, I was looking at, that's a good example of what this will allow us to systemize. And is that I came in and there were class sizes in that lower grades, they were all above 25. Right, there was at least 3 areas that were above 25 substantially. So my decision point was, I was going on my experience, going, that's just too large. I think it's better for us to systemize it.
Yeah.
So that everybody knows, hey, we're looking at it, we want as small class sizes as possible, with the understanding that some are might float to 26, there might be one at 23, because how you set up classes sometimes, it's not an exact mathematical, it doesn't work out exactly that way. Especially at the high school level, when you have so many offerings, that there's some kids that if they wanna take this, and this, but some of them are offered at the same time, and sometimes you have to do alternating years. I mean, there's things out there that make class sizes, there needing to be a little flexibility, just based on the reality of how students take classes. Questions?
So this might not even be included in this discussion here, but you know, like in high school in particular, let's just say some AP courses. Is that really let me just see how I'm gonna word this in regards to inside the building, in regards to being creative and scheduling? Because if you just have 2 courses that are AP that only has 8 students, is there an option of combining those 2 to allow, you know,
Yeah,
more so that we can still offer it without having to take it away, but still be within the optimal class size?
I think that would be
Does
letter A.
Okay,
So the degree of dependence or independence of the students being assigned,
okay,
that, you know, if, I think that example speaks direct, it's a good question and a good example. I think that speaks directly to A.
okay,
And special education and at-risk students,
Yeah.
at-risk is Quest. So that's a statutory definition, so both are identified in letter E.
okay,
So I think A through G,
Okay.
establishing, you know, the 15 and the 20 for the 2 different levels, provides enough latitude and will hopefully get us a little bit more balanced over time, which is the goal. I mean,
Okay.
we don't want larger classes, average classes in the elementary school
Right.
than the upper levels.
Mhm.
You know, no disrespect or anything intended to the upper levels, it's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think secondary teachers would agree that we shouldn't have lower class sizes than, you know, a first grade teacher,
Sure,
you know, which is all I'm
just because the needs of the classroom and stuff like that.
absolutely, that,
So we have to tweak this one a little bit more?
we have to add a sentence.
Okay.
We have to add a sentence and change a few words. So if you add one sentence to be specific to 612, and then make the first sentence to be specific to elementary school, then you're there.
Can we also add something to the effect of like, if there are outliers, that superintendent would have to kind of, you know, either run it by like a committee or the board in regards to
Certainly.
that? Something to that effect.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I don't want,
We could do a standard report, we could put some language about,
something like that, that just at
You
least
know,
there's a little bit of,
we have 2 board meetings a month, so it could either be at the regular board meeting or my superintendent's report, or it could be at this committee.
The committee,
I think
committee
committee
level's
seems
fine.
more
Yeah.
flexible, I would think.
So let's put that
Maybe
in,
like,
I mean, not this committee,
or
like
would be under,
curriculum and,
would it be in curriculum committee,
it would be, I think,
right?
right?
cause I think this is gonna fall under like the 300 student section.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I
that
think
might
at
be
least
student
to-
services.
At least
Or
To a
I guess it
committee
would fall
of sorts,
under,
right? That it would be brought to the committee.
Blank committee.
The 300
committee.
instruction, the 300 instruction section,
So that would be
CNL.
CNL.
So at least be presented to at least the committee.
Absolutely.
I think that would be, give us at
We can-
least,
We can add a sentence to the end of the
Okay.
procedure.
not to
Yeah.
mean that you would ever go crazy, but just in case, so that all of a sudden we hear
Well, yeah,
consistently
now we
there's,
gotta.
So we'll bring this one back.
No, I actually think that's a reasonable oversight,
yeah,
that, I mean, the board job from a boardsmanship level and governance level is oversight.
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, we're establishing this, but it establishes a specific check and oversight, which I think is reasonable.
And I just see it as like if there was a situation where a teacher or parent goes, well, you know, there's this class that's et cetera.
Yeah.
And then we're,
It's,
not aware of it.
it actually
Well, yeah, it's
establishes
just
a
good
good,
to stay current with the
Current with
information.
what's happened. So I just think
In
a
the
little
loop.
bit of that, that,
yeah, we can certainly add that.
and I think splitting up the exception down here for the minimum class size is great.
Okay,
And then
So for whatever reason, the 300 series starts at 321,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe if we just make this 320, because it'll need a number.
good
Okay.
round number, yeah, okay.
I didn't realize it started, so.
yeah,
Roughly.
So policy 320 and procedure 320?
Yeah, I mean, at some point it's gonna need a number, so.
Yeah.
Since I'm
But
looking
we don't
inside
have
there anyway.
We don't currently have one.
Right.
excellent.
Okay.
What's
Is this coming
next?
back to this committee?
Yeah, should
Do
we
you
have
want
one
to
more?
do that
Or
or
do
just
you
bring
want
it
it
to
to
the
go to
board?
discussion with the changes highlighted and the
Probably.
full board?
I'm okay with discussion. I mean, I think those are very minor changes.
Just bring it to the board?
I mean, they're not major, additions, so I think it can be brought to full board for discussion,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Okay,
Just for
absolutely.
discussion.
The first read.
I mean, it's pretty cut and dry.
Highlight
yeah.
changes.
And the policy, so class size will be determined by the superintendent or recommended by the superintendent?
Oh,
by the
you know
board?
what? Procedures actually, we're changing the procedure.
Yeah,
That was a procedure.
So only the policy goes to the full board.
okay,
The procedure
The
is in
procedure
committee.
actually just is in committee.
okay.
So let's just bring that back to committee and then we can bring this forward.
So on the policy.
Oh, so you have a comment on the policy?
Yeah, just, and I thought the school board determines the size based on recommendations from the superintendent. And I may be completely wrong, but that's how I thought it was. Now this is saying will be determined by the superintendent.
This is new to us, so I don't have any reference.
This is a new, it really is player's choice. Class sizes, well, I mean, some districts don't have it. I've had districts that have had it.
Okay.
Largely for balancing reasons.
Yeah.
And to
Right.
establish, not because, you can't go to like, Neola or, our policies, the PRG, and find samples to push off of. But there are districts that have class size policies. I've worked in several of them. And they do give however you wanna word it,
Uh-huh.
it more comes down to the procedure and making sure that we have a reference check.
Yep.
And the why is that disbalance that we have and that
Sure.
work, these guidelines are helpful.
Sure.
They're really helpful for administrators to say, all right, here's how I'm setting, because this is that time of year right now where we're looking at class sizes, how many teachers, staffing,
Right.
everything. This gives structure around what can be an unstructured process.
So what if that last sentence says the board will establish class size procedures because you are
Yeah, I would like it's a
establishing
chicken and the egg,
this
we already are.
procedure, how
That's where I
is
was
that?
Some of that.
Yeah.
And the superintendent is supposed to use every effort to follow those procedures based on
That's
the
good.
current circumstances, is that okay?
Yeah,
Yes,
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
I
that was
like that. And it addresses Joel's point. Because then we can bring this to the board for discussion. They can see the procedures and we can bring the procedures back here
Yeah.
as well.
Yep, that makes
Well, I
sense.
mean, you could actually choose to approve the procedure at that discussion,
yeah,
so we don't need to come
That's
back here.
I
You could
fine
choose to
either
do
way.
both at the full board since it's new,
So at the full board meeting,
you would do
only,
both.
I mean,
only this committee would vote on the procedure.
No, the whole board.
Oh,
I mean, I
Okay.
think it's good for the whole
You
board
don't
to
have to,
have
like,
it
that's one of the
in
things,
front of
like, the policy has to go to the full board, the procedure can stay in committee, but since it's brand new and it's so tightly
I'm just doing
connected,
both.
instead of having a separate meeting,
I
you
know,
could just bring both forward, and the motion will say that the whole board is passing both.
yeah,
Policy
I'm
procedure.
okay with that.
yeah,
I think that's a good idea also because this is a new policy that I think the whole board should look at, both policy and procedure.
Correct.
Excellent.
Okay, next is policy 641, deposit.
Oh, do we need a motion to move that to the,
Oh,
Yeah, you like motion.
I'm jumping ahead.
so I'll make a motion to move that to the full board for discussion.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Alright, policy 320, policy, what was it, class size?
Class size.
Policy procedures and usually. Next is 641.
I don't have those. These are all
Oh, we're
Kate's.
going to go
So
to,
we're moving 185 up.
yes, I forgot about, because I'm reading it going, wait.
Or do you
Oh,
want me
sorry.
to-
No, yes, I did, thank you. I was in the
Yeah, I
mode
got
of
these.
going down the,
Okay.
I didn't have Kate's.
Okay, 641.
no, we're
So we're
doing,
gonna go to
we're doing
185.
185, which is the more important one, because in case I have to leave. Those are the two that I really wanted to have conversations
Yep.
about, which is the 185 committees.
Okay,
And
so,
so these are like really sensitive, so.
okay, so we're not doing 160 or 641 at all tonight.
No, we'll do all the other
Oh,
ones,
just-
but
okay, I
just in
see.
case someone has to
Switch,
leave
yeah.
early,
Okay.
these are the two that we really wanted to have a full committee for.
To have a conversation, so.
Cause the remaining ones have actually already gone through the finance committee, so they've already gone through the committee.
We just need a vote.
So this is new.
We don't need to make a motion to move the agenda?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no,
All right.
this isn't the annual meeting.
Okay, which one are you looking at?
Subcommittees of the Board of Education, policy 185, and then procedure, yep,
So,
that's our original, and that's what's
So-
the,
So there's policy 185, whose title is Committees of the Board of Education, and it's pretty short, and it has all the history, approval dates below, that's the one that we currently have. And then,
Policy or procedure, I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry, policy 185 is the short one, that says Committees of the Board, that's the one that we currently have in the district.
Okay.
And then the procedure is also like the current procedure we have in the district, obviously with changes that I made. And then the policy that starts standing committees of the school board is the WASB template that they have for committees. And so, since this is the first time we're talking about this, I just brought them all forward. In previous conversations, we had talked about combining personnel and finance committees together. So I'm showing that change of pretty much just moving finance up to be connected to personnel. And then we had talked about previously removing the communications committee. That committee was established in the district when they were going to referendum some time ago. And that is common to have that committee during a moment like that. It is uncommon to have a communications committee just as a normal committee in a district that's not going through a substantial change. But we have thought about adding a student services committee to have a little bit of separation between those two departments, because usually the things are also being flushed through curriculum and learning, but they're really more enrollment, discipline, attendance, and they're not really curriculum and learning, which is more like the materials and how we're teaching it and all that kind of stuff, and
Discipline,
economic achievement, so this would separate out special ed, alternative ed,
discipline, attendance.
discipline, attendance,
I think
all that kind of stuff.
I think that committee is gonna be more important than the communication, and most of the work.
I think this is a good, and people use different names, but this is a good mix. And this is a good mix of committees that really dials in to all the core work of the district.
So that being said, I always like the WASB template to make it to the table. And so I did like the WASB template. I actually thought it provided a lot of information about committees, what they are,
Which one's the WASB template?
the long one.
The long one.
The policy 185, it says standing committees.
Got it.
And so I thought it, and the things that are highlighted are the things where it had me like pick something. So 3, if, you know, you could put any number you wanted in there, cause they don't know how big your board is. But we have 3, so I stayed with 3, and then it says to list them, that's what we might want. And then, they are appointed by the board president. You guys kind of discuss these things at your organization meeting, but the board president does do it. They had other options there, but I don't think we've ever operated that way. And then on the back, it recommended, you know, instead of having a separate rule, to put in what a committee does. And I kind of felt like our procedure, if you look at that, it's really like each one has their own list of things. And I don't think they need to be that defined. I think each committee can bring forward whatever its chair and its administrative chair feel are appropriate under that committee. I don't know if it needed to be so prescribed. I like that WASB had these very general things that all committees are supposed to do without being so specific as what you can and cannot talk about.
So are you saying that if we're using the WASB or introducing this, that we're just gonna get rid of
There's
the
no procedure.
That
Yeah.
makes sense, okay, cause I was reading it going, this is really long. And a lot of this stuff should be in procedure, but if you're going with the reference of removing the procedure, that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, so they kind of recommended that it could just be one policy.
Yeah.
And that you could put this information into your policy. And sometimes I think for the public, just having this one document is a little bit more user friendly. And I don't think the procedure is highly prescriptive in the same way that our other procedure was. To me, these feel like the bare minimum requirements of a
Yeah.
committee to follow.
I actually looked at other districts and just throwing out different options of what they did for their committee. One of them, all they did was really, they listed their committees and they actually listed the series. You know,
Oh,
of
okay.
what they did, for example, you know, teaching, learning, 200, 2,000, for them they, 2,000, student services, the 5,000 series.
Yeah.
So that's an option for us to actually list too, to simplify even more, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Ours aren't perfect, but
I know, so I wanted to just bring that up, cause that's just something I saw and I go, oh, that actually makes it even easier.
I think at some point when we move past maybe some of our updating work,
Yeah.
I think we could go in and look and see if the series number makes sense.
Okay.
Cause right now, the 300 and 400 series and the 800 series include both what would be student services and curriculum and learning.
Alright,
I always like the legal references that come with, you know, either WASB or Neola template, not that
okay,
obviously, you know, someone else, policy lawyers have sat down and vetted this.
okay. So if that is the case, then I actually then do like it, because I read it thinking that we were gonna keep the procedure aspect of it, and it
Oh, yeah, no.
just seems so redundant to me.
Yeah, no, this would be a complete
Okay,
removal of our policy and
Okay.
procedures we currently have to adopt just this policy. If you wanted to have a procedure, it would be page 2, what's highlighted.
Okay.
But it didn't feel as necessary,
Is there something that determines like what a committee can vote on, like, for example, curriculum, you know, it doesn't come to the full board for approval, you know what I mean?
yeah, but that's kinda tedious to list that.
Right, but if it's not listed, how do people know, like, you know what I mean? So, I'm thinking like, if it's a new board, right, if we come in, well, who approves the curriculum, is it the full board, is it the curriculum committee, where is that?
I'm trying to think
You know
if
what I
that's
mean?
actually in the curriculum curriculum.
Yeah, that would be under the curriculum adoption. I'm trying to
I've been
think,
debating saying
most of-
curricula.
Most of all, like, almost all policies, let's go through.
Full board,
And then the procedures need to be.
okay,
So it's kind of like a given that all of it goes to full
Okay.
board, we vote as a body.
yeah, I just wanna make sure, you know, people like know that.
Because I don't think we've ever kept any policy that stated that,
I don't
that's
think
the
we
only
did.
procedure, so I don't think we.
So I don't think it's
Cause everything would go to the board,
Yeah, and it might have to
Correct.
go to
For
the board
approval.
anyways.
and then they can motion second the whole board could motion second and discuss
Yep.
and even change things there if they
Yep.
choose to.
Or then they can bring it back to the
The
board
committee
too,
to
so-
rework it,
But everything
Yep.
goes through full board,
Okay.
especially when it has to do with policy.
except for curriculum. Curriculum does not have to go to
You mean
the
like when they
board.
actually pick like the books,
Mm-hmm,
that stays
Yeah.
in committee?
Yeah, but any policies.
Okay.
The curriculum always has to
Go to the board, okay,
So I know Amy and I plan on working
right,
on all the curriculum policies
Yeah.
this summer.
yeah,
So I think in there we can make it clear the process that curriculum goes through.
okay.
sure, yep, okay, no, it's
So then
just
that's
curious.
fine, then if that is the case, then yes, I do actually like.
And then one other thing for me, do we ever decide on superintendent or district administrator?
Oh,
Cause I see superintendent in this policy, and then I see district administrator in this one.
The licensure is superintendent. But it's their
so we've been
interchange.
calling
What
it
have we been doing?
superintendent.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
we've been doing
we just need to update this.
Oh, wait, sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
I got so
superintendent.
focused on the committee name.
Yep,
Yep, I'll change district administrator to superintendent. We've just been using it because sometimes the public, like we're district level administrators and then like the district administrator, and sometimes it gets confusing.
mhm.
I think using superintendent is less,
Okay,
it's easier,
Yeah.
it's easier for people.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll make that change.
So
Concise.
so
Sorry.
there's just a couple areas in there.
I'll make them. I'm so focused on
Yeah.
the committees.
Perfect.
Good catch.
Oh, I read this.
I was tired. It's been a week.
Mhm.
Yes, but
You
you
just do a
you
circle.
could have done more.
I
late
know,
at night.
I could have done more and
I
I
had several
I
opportunities.
disappointed the superintendent in my
I
lack
had-
of desire to do more.
I had several opportunities for you,
Wow.
That night.
including last night.
I don't really love being a designee. I want full powers if I'm gonna be put on something.
Right,
So I can make the changes to district administrator, superintendent.
And the committee chair is elected amongst the committee, correct?
So usually the board president does appoint.
Points.
Yeah.
Appoints the
As the
chair, okay,
organization.
okay.
I mean,
If not,
and it's based on whatever
you guys are a little
system.
friendly about it at your meeting. I mean, so usually it's kind of like the committees get set, who wants to be on it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Does somebody want to be chair? Does somebody make sense to be
I
chair?
see, yep,
But at the end of the day,
It can be by any system, really,
yep.
deemed by the
last year,
president.
I think last year we
Yeah.
let the committee choose who their chair.
Yeah, I think that's what we did last year, that's why I was just
So let me
curious.
just have.
Yeah. I think that's in policy, the committees determine the chair.
Okay.
So I have a question on actually the end of this, it was just me when I read it.
oh yeah, this is
It is.
the,
Is it
I'm pretty
needed,
sure.
the last
Was it
paragraph,
so I left that in there because it kind of just happened to us.
What?
Okay,
what,
Which one? What happened?
that was it.
that last paragraph, I just
Oh.
read it and going, does that even make sense? Committee form.
Or
Oh, okay.
You don't have to have it, but
Committee forum
but we
for,
do kind of now collectively bargain.
We need to, I know, we just,
I think it's good that it's there,
okay,
Mhm.
then that's fine.
largely because policy lawyers looked at it and put it there for, I mean,
Okay.
we could debate it as to why, but, you know, it would have to be
I just
why.
did, I read it going, oh, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
but we actually just dealt with this.
Yeah, so by
Mhm.
statute,
Mhm.
your very initial exchanges of proposals for collective bargaining
Mhm.
have to be publicly noticed.
Right.
Anything after the initial exchange is not publicly noticed and is not open to the public. If you create a committee, a collective bargaining committee as a board committee, now open meeting laws apply to every single meeting,
That's different.
and it always has to be publicly posted and open.
So that is if we create a.
And we didn't
Yes.
do that
Okay,
when
Oh.
we were,
so that's why I read it going, that doesn't apply.
so that's why I had several,
Okay, that is if.
you know,
That's why we're
questions.
saying like anything that we're doing when we meet is not a committee of the board under this policy.
Yeah,
So it's not
Because-
subject to open meeting laws.
that is if we create, okay.
Yeah, I actually think it's important that it's there.
It's only the very first one that is subject to
So
it.
I read it going, that didn't.
Yeah, so we haven't had it before, but we just had it last night, so.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
So yeah, I read it, so that is something that,
And are these the committees that you want?
Oh,
Personnel, so really the
Yeah,
biggest
I mean,
change is
we
no
went-
more communications.
we'd have 4 instead of 5.
And it just makes sense to combine personnel and finance, right?
So you have 4 instead of 5.
Did that work well this past year, Leanne, combining the two?
I actually think it worked out really well for Caitlin and I.
Yeah,
It made sense.
it made sense.
Every once in a while, I'll need it and she won't, and every once in a while she'll need it and I won't. But we spend a lot of months where we both need it at the same
Yeah.
time.
And there's a pretty
We're so
direct
connected.
connection,
Yeah.
actually, the last board meeting is a good example. There's a direct connection, 75% of our budget has to do with personnel. So there's a direct connection between that, health insurance.
Yeah.
All the different big players, so it just makes sense
Mhm.
that they stay connected.
We're down to 4, which is good.
Yes.
And these are like the 4 key ones, so that's what I've been always trying to push, so we're not gonna make it happen.
I think student services is gonna be a great committee. I actually think that there's like questions that came up recently, I think at the last board, about
Yeah.
what is discipline looking like? I mean, those sorts of things are we have live snapshots of that. Attendance, discipline, those are things we can delve into. At-risk programming, graduation rates, attendance.
I like it.
Those sorts of things matter. Because the higher level of attendance, higher level of achievement, kids aren't there, they're not gonna learn. So, while attendance doesn't seem, it is actually a big issue,
So pupil services that will be overseeing this,
Student services director,
We're
student
looking
services
at,
director,
right,
Mr.
Okay,
Munoz
that's
changed it to student services.
right.
Okay,
So
will they be the one,
we'll be hiring that within the next month.
So yeah, that would be the director of student services then. And quite honestly, we were already high with the number of committees. A different partner in my HR group sent out one and most have 2 or 3.
Mhm.
Some have 4 that are only like the 4th is only like a quarterly thing.
great,
So, I think we actually at 4 are still, we're well within the mix of
It
what's,
really comes down to this committee, once the policy committee can work through and get everything up to where it needs to be, policy can be a little less frequent as long as we're attentive to the
We
necessary
we
changes.
actually talked about that we would just
we're getting
come,
close.
quarterly and all the ones that brought to us.
Absolutely.
So we can tailor it as needed moving forward, which I think would be easier.
Yeah, so I think, a lot of our district communications are set. We have a weekly newsletter to families, we have a weekly newsletter to staff. We have our social media platforms, which are all positive things about the district. Things that pop up, well, they pop up quickly and immediately and need to be communicated, so they don't go through a committee. If any committee or any other area of the district has a communication need, they can go through a different committee. If we still wanna continue with any policy work around that, it can come to policy, it doesn't need its own committee. So I think, especially after our strategic planning where communication was like a thing that was prominent in the discussions, I don't wanna dismiss that communication in a school
Right.
district isn't critical. I don't think it's necessary to have it as a committee because the work actually happens in a multitude of other places. And,
The vast majority of the districts we looked at don't have a communications committee.
oh
Yeah,
no,
Oh, that's what I was thinking too, like, I
Like,
thought
we couldn't find many.
I thought we kind of formulated an idea in the past, I think you brought it up, like, each committee has like a communications
components.
piece, yeah, so there's a component and it can funnel to the main communication person, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah.
I just think we would do more work in student services committee than communications.
Absolutely.
So
Well, I mean, it's been,
that to me, that's
Non-existent.
like
Yeah.
And I think unfortunately, student services fell a little bit to the wayside because curriculum learning is so heavy of a committee. And like the topics and the materials, they take a long time to review. And it's like you're already got these jam-packed meetings, so it's like, oh, well, we can talk about attendance later.
yeah, right.
For me personally, student services and policy are kind of where I lean. Of course, I have an interest in finance, a high level interest in finance. But it's critical. Like I said, if attendance is, which it was a struggle.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're the main and the most important, I mean, they are the components of this district that.
We were sitting
Probably should have
85% attendance,
Review.
as recently as a year and a half ago. there's gonna be a drag on reading and math if the students aren't available on a regular basis. So that's something that can kind of be looked over a little bit because, you know, I am interested in learning and reading and all these sorts of things, but we gotta get them there. And sometimes it's a little bit more difficult than what one might think.
Okay,
So I think we have a lot of Caitlin's policies too.
Yeah, are you okay
So
moving
we
this to the
okay?
full board?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The district administrative change?
Yeah, I do like the procedure though. I don't know, I think it's just, it's kind of spelled out functions and duties of that committee, I like that. That's my
I mean, I went with the
but-
generic, just to not tie your hands, but I'm gonna be honest, we talk about anything that's not in here, you shouldn't be, and we're in violation of our own procedure.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure if
Yeah,
anybody looked at this in a while, cause I didn't even realize it was so long.
Very true.
You know, I
Everybody have
definitely
to
recommend
also-
giving yourself as much latitude as possible. And in following the WASB, it doesn't take anything away
Sure,
from that which you would like to bring to committee or suggest.
okay,
But I would just recommend, like, at the end of this meeting, or any public meeting, to say, what about a future agenda item?
I see.
Like, if you're thinking about it, put it, like, talk about a future agenda item. And, because those are like marching orders to administrators, like, okay, where's that future agenda item gonna go? Like, where are we gonna fit that? Is it this committee, that committee, or the regular board, or both?
Okay.
You know, future agenda items
that
is,
means we'd also have to create a whole new procedure
For student services.
Yeah, and I didn't even put anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So,
fine.
I just
wasn't
think if we can make it more succinct and easier and
Sure.
it falls into one policy that lists everything, I
Absolutely.
think that just covers everything.
Okay,
You really have broad powers in a committee, and you don't wanna limit them.
that makes, I get it,
I don't wanna handcuff us to anything.
I get it.
And like I said, this is the WASB recommended, they,
With no procedure
yep,
well, if you wanna make something a procedure, it would be what's on the back.
on the back,
But it did recommend for ease of use to just put it inside the policy.
yep,
And it does not recommend being specific any place other than just what are your committees called.
okay,
and actually, they build in their, I mean, in their policy, what you and what we are used to as procedures, they just put it all in one document.
gotcha.
So then we'll need a motion to actually move the policy 185, the PRG version,
Yes.
to the full board.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then we will also be removing the procedures.
We'll be removing the policy and procedure. And I'll put that in the blurb.
Okay, in the middle.
Are they all?
Makes sense.
So now we'll set it back up to policy 641.
Okay,
Alright, we have gate receipts.
we're gonna go back to the top, depository of funds.
Alright, depository of funds. Oh yes, I talked to Caitlin about this.
It's gone through finance already.
Yes, this has gone through finance, just if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. We're moving annually.
I read it. Sounds good to me.
I'm okay as is.
So let's move it to the,
I'll need a motion to move to
A motion.
policy 641, depository of funds.
I'll second.
On the board. All those in favor say aye.
We're gonna go back and forth, just so you know. Aye.
It's made it difficult for me.
I'm sorry.
Copy and paste.
Paper X is on the next
Copy and
one.
paste,
Well,
copy and paste.
finance already went through it, so it's like
Yeah.
redundant for
It's
us
just-
to do,
are
so
we on 643 gate receipts?
we're just gonna
So
watch.
just so the listening audience knows, these next few have already gone through the finance committee.
Okay,
And the reason that they're being brought forward is because they were out of that 5-year review cycle. So that's why for these, you'll see, even if you see some highlighting, what we're bringing forward is what I would call a fairly minimal change. And just making sure that it's clear and following the best practices in what we're doing right now.
Because the last time it was approved was 1992.
Yeah, technically, these are called technical changes, so the director of finance and operations instead of business services.
Yep.
So we do recommend that change.
Looks good to me. So we need a motion to move policy 643, gate receipts and admissions to the full board for discussion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I was still kind of absorbing this one for a second.
Are we on 651.1 then? Okay. So 651.1 is changing the word facsimile to electronic. Okay, we had a good laugh about that in finance.
I don't think I've ever called it facsimile.
So I think that's
I know,
a
but-
reasonable piece, but then the next chunk
Fact.
specifically talks about the authority for processing payroll related transactions.
Okay.
That's that mini paragraph. So it gives the director of finance and operations to authorize district personnel to process disbursements that are approved periodic payments through the use of money transfer techniques, including direct deposit, electronic funds transfer, and automated clearinghouse methods, provided that a record is kept of the date, et cetera. So essentially that's establishing like ACH transfers and all the different manners of how money moves from a school district, but it's specifically naming it. Then also the list of vouchers for payments of goods and services being submitted to the board for review, which we already do. But making sure that that's clear, and then changing business services to finance and operations. We do recommend these changes.
I'll make,
I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to bring it to full board.
Policy 651.1.
And I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then this one is,
This is just a procedure.
this is the procedure that Caitlin brought, last time we met. And I believe she,
This one I'm not as dialed into, but
so this, I don't know what happened, but when it was attached, it was weird, I'll fix it for the full board, Caitlin. Added the, I believe,
there's finance and operation
it's
change on
page
this.
2. Oh, this already came to committee, but then we worked a little bit in hazardous roads and then in the responsibility for transportation decisions.
Yeah, I think that was in discussion.
Yeah.
We thought it would be a little bit more explicit if we actually put that in there.
Right,
Because I think that came up with that one incident with that parent and that boy.
She added the hazardous roads.
So we just added that in there. And then,
there's a change with non-mandated,
yeah,
that word. Okay,
I'll fix the format.
so it was already discussed.
So the policy already got approved at the full board, so this procedure just needs to be approved in committee.
And I remember
Yep, I was talking.
talking about that and
you're right,
so.
I was dialed into my one.
So this would be a motion to approve.
So I need a motion to approve
I'll make a motion.
procedure for anyone, pupil transportation.
Can I have some fun in these
Okay,
meetings?
She made motion, I'll second
Motion.
that.
There's
I know you do.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
There you go, Nina.
That's all, right?
We're looking at,
Wait, do we need also anything else, discussions?
hurry before the vacuum comes.
He is already done, Mike is great, he already did this room and the hallway.
Oh, wow.
So, this is the one where I personally don't believe we have any pressing business we need in April.
Mhm.
So normally we would wait,
Okay.
until after the organizational meeting. And then the new committee would pick its first date and convene in May.
So this may be the last meeting for this committee, current
So I
committee.
think,
For the people on this committee, unless
unless you
the
would
board
like,
president.
unless you wanna meet before April 22nd, I mean, we can,
It's a pretty busy month.
I would just, I
I'm
would
trying to
just,
think, we don't have anything, I think that it was intentional for us to schedule it this way,
yeah,
that-
we scheduled ourselves through March.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually have any pressing policies or procedures.
Okay.
If something were to happen to come up.
curriculum, I have a
again.
ton of appointments.
I mean, I do actually think you have other committees that are meeting more
Yeah.
heavily.
Yes,
Mhm.
This one I don't,
we like to.
Curriculum,
so we don't know who will be on the committee until after your organizational meeting. So after the organizational meeting, I'll reach out to whomever the committee members, I mean, you could be the same, you don't have to change.
Yeah.
But I'll reach out to whomever the members are, and then we'll schedule a new one in May.
Very good. There's nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing else. Any motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
It's getting cold. I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, meeting adjourned
So this is
at
technically the last one
5:46.
the next.
You said, what are you gonna bring pizza or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Me?
Yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
We gotta make sure.
I gotta go
yeah,
grocery
we gotta
shopping. I could've
just,
brought, I
just
could've.
we need to shut that off.
Oh, yeah, we do.
think